are your hosts, long-time partners in slime, Adam Obscene and Mark.
Hello, listeners and Losteners. Hello, Mark.
Hello, Adam Obscene. Great to see you.
So we are back, and tonight we are kicking off a new series within a series. And before we go any more into our normal niffy-natty, chitty-chatty, check this out.
Wastelands. Lostener. Resquest.
The future. A river of turbulent wind has swept the skies, and nature has reclaimed the planet. In the desolate wasteland that remains, a mysterious fugitive is pursued and captured by a brutal lawman and his feisty tracker. When a wily bounty hunter grabs their prisoner, they vow to track him to the edge of existence. Now, it's a race against time across dangerous territory, a battle of wits in an unknown land. A test of courage under fire, and this time there will be no prisoner. Slipstream.
Requested by Baron Von Borg.
So yes, requested by a notable listener for a long time, pretty much right from the start, Mr. Baron Von Borg has, through the social medias, said, "Hey dudes, you should review this," and so we are.
Excellent, man. And Baron Von Borg, proprietor of Bad Habit Records. Yes. In Nambour, Queensland, Australia. Now
in Nambour. Made the move north from Ipswich to Cane Punk Central in the Nam. So he's doing time in Nam and making the best of it. So shout out Azza, and we're gonna hope you dig this one. So this is for you, big fella. Slipstream. 1989 disaster piece, which, mate, I have got to say I have seen it, and I had seen it, but I really cursory glance over it. So rewatching it was actually interesting. It's like, to say the least. For the uninitiated, basically it's like, in the near future, it's a post-apocalyptic, which is you'd expect from Borgie, is Earth has been decimated by natural disasters, and a giant wind rules the planet. And a bounty hunter named Matt kidnaps a murderer from two police officers and is planning to get the bounty for himself, and then basically just turns into a bit of a chase scene throughout the thing. It's kind of like, it's like Road Warrior with no roads and Waterworld with no water.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a big wind. It's like,
yeah. It was good. It was 1989 release. Yeah, man, that's what you could expect from this era. I thought Mark Hamill, of course, was the shining star in this. He was like the best actor in it. Everybody else was a bit, but it was good. Look, I enjoyed it.
It was directed by Steven Limberger, who, Marco, he was actually responsible. He was the director for Tron, Disney's Tron-tastic film. This was his fifth one, and from everything I can sort of see, he's last.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah,
and that
descent.
And it probably is due to the fact that it cost a shit ton to make and didn't get a US distribution in cinemas.
Right.
So that's gonna kill you every time. So who else was in it? Well, it's interesting because it actually does have a bit of a stellar cast. Like, it's got Bob Peck in it, who played Byron. So he was, you'll know him from, he had a bit role in Jurassic Park and a bunch of other stuff. You had Bill Paxton, Matt the Bounty Hunter. So he was like in Alien and True Lies. So there's your oily walnut connection with Arnie Schwarzenegger. And he was also in Twister. And two notable sort of cameo parts with Robbie Coltrane, who was like Hagrid or Nuns on the Run with Eric Idle.
Yep.
And Sir Ben Kingsley played that weird guru wind dude who basically sprouted out a whole heap of like pontificating nonsense and then died. So that was quite weird.
Yeah, that's right. They stumble across a cult of sort of
wind worshippers,
almost like cave-dwelling people that eschewed technology to worship the wind. And he actually reminded me, the cult leader actually reminded me of the singer from Pentagram, that band Pentagram.
Even the way he spoke.
Yeah, same hair, everything. Yeah. He had a really British heavy metal, like late 80s heavy metal look to him. He was hilarious.
It could have been an extra episode on Comic Strip Presents. Like it's like Bad News 3.
Yeah. There was a lot of British, British comedy actors in there.
So look, well, my observations on it were quite interesting. Well, not quite interesting. I felt like it was one part Blade Runner, one part Mad Max, a light sprinkling of like Star Wars with a little bit of Snake Plissken.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. I thought Mark Hamill's character looked a lot like Kiefer Sutherland's vampire character in Lost Boys too.
Yeah, and acted a little bit like Rick Deckard in Blade Runner. Like he was sort of like that bad-ass law enforcement dude. And then you had like the Bill Paxton's character was kind of like, I'm going to call him Matt Pliskin. Snake's like not so hardcore brother.
Yeah, there was that kind of hench mullet vibe going on there.
The hench mullet and the bounty hunter, but like he was like against his older brother Snake. He'd never really cut it, so he just got abandoned to the windy wastelands.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
he was pretty rubbish as a bounty hunter, and I found it was kind of weird that they centered the whole movie, like really that character of Matt the bounty hunter was the centerpiece of the story. Mm-hmm. And it was really a weak character. Like it was. Yeah,
he was kind of weak. Like I like to write down some quotes, and one of his quotes, and I don't know, for me it sums it up. Like this is the kind of movie it is. Let's get some shut eye. Like that was his character. Like that was the lines, the caliber of line for his character. Let's get some shut eye.
Look, the spoiler bits come in here. So, like, basically, Matt kidnaps Byron, the murderer, from Mark Hamill's police officer. I think his name was Tasker. And it turns out that, that Byron's he's a bit odd, and he can, like, cure the blind, and he can get out of handcuffs, and he's all like this butler-looking dude who's well prim and proper in the middle of like a post-apocalyptic disastrous wasteland. And it turns out that he's basically a Terminator butler. He's an android, and
he's an android,
but the reveal on it is really limp. Like it's like you sort of guess it, and then it's like, oh yeah. There's one line where Mark Hamill goes like, something about androids. It's like, oh, okay, so that's the big reveal. They didn't, and there was a couple of sort of unresolved things through this whole movie, which I found hilarious. Yeah. But they sort of like, it's like the script. Without getting too analytical on it, suffered from not having enough rewrites. Like, it's like, we'll have all these ideas, but we never resolve any of them. So, like, like how the android actually kills his master. They don't actually, there's one line where how we got onto this is like, Matt the bounty hunter, he's a bit limp wristed, and he goes, I'm guessing he asked for it. And then Byron goes, well, yeah, actually he did. And that was it.
Yeah.
It's like,
that was it. Okay. So you're supposed to work out for yourself that, maybe the master was, elderly and ailing, and it was more of a euthanasia type thing rather than a cold-blooded murder.
I might be looking more into it than but I went there exactly like you said. And I thought like Will Smith's iRobot, how the robot actually is tricked in or configured into killing his master because his master wanted to die. Like I felt, so I sort of felt that. I may be reading more into it, but
I did too.
Maybe it's just our need to actually extrapolate a really poor story with something a bit deeper.
Well, maybe so, Adam. Well, here's the thing: they didn't give us a clear resolution for this, so we were left with questions, mate. And we are the kind of people who are going to try our best to answer those questions, especially for our listeners.
The benefit of the doubt to the script writers. That's what they meant us to think.
Sure.
the other thing was this weird promised land that the android kept on sprouting on again. It's like, I dreamed of this place. I'm pretty sure I've never been there. Maybe I'll go there, that place I dreamt of. But, you know, and then he sort of, at the end of the movie, climbs over some rocks as if he's going to this place, I guess. I don't know. It's like,
I don't know. Like, yeah, it's...
So yeah. It's also look, I got some clips here. Speaking about the weird dialogue and the scripts, I'll play these through because it kind of will give the Losteners a bit of a vibe of what we're talking about.
What the hell happened here?
Mr. Rowan here thinks he's going to take our prisoner. Poison dart. Now drop the gun and we'll talk about getting you the antidote.
I never believe a man staring down the barrel of a gun.
Well, you should this time.
This is forbidden territory. What are you doing?
You're under arrest. All of you.
Let's show them what we got, boys.
This is what hell is. You're stuck in a place like this forever.
I can help you.
I'll give you the antidote. Then I'll shoot you. That's what I like. Teamwork. Sense of fair play.
You've misled them about us. So how can we know you're not misleading us about them?
It's our next stop!
I should kill you right now is what I should.
I'm not leaving with you.
So what I'm going to say about all those clips is that this film had a really majestic, really well put together soundtrack.
It did.
But it was fucking inappropriate. Like, it popped up in the weirdest fucking spots, right? It made no sense. Like, it was like John Williamson, who did the score from Star Wars, he's like understudy, got this gig, and then said, I'm going to do something as epic. But it just didn't. It just didn't work. It was like weird, especially when you got Bill Paxton, like, laying in a cave with an android saying, I'm not going to take my eyes off you, and then falls asleep.
Yeah. Oh, man. I feel like Mark Hamill should have been featured in this a lot more because there were sort of really big parts of it, like Getaway, where they got away, and Mark Hamill was nowhere to be seen for like, you know, a third of the movie. He should have been in it. He would have been great in it and would have lifted the whole thing up. But he was nowhere to be seen for ages.
I think if he played the copper role, but like if he actually had the central role of the Bill Paxton character, but played it like that copper, like badass, but with a heart of gold, and he was in the center part of the film, it would have nailed it. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Because this was like Mark Hamill's first film after Return of the Jedi. So he didn't do a movie for 6 years after Return of the Jedi. And he deliberately took this role because it was so different to Luke Skywalker.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, you know, so he did it. So there was that sort of, but I think that they could have just made the bounty hunter way more harder and less goofy. And the coppers could have been more goofy. But still, you know, I think that was just a misstep, that they flipped that around the wrong way. Because why would you give the leading role to Bill Paxton at that point in his career when you've got Mark Hamill, who's like, it's his comeback film from, you know, Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, for sure. Like, put him all the way through it. And yeah, you're dead right, Adam. The bounty hunter and the cop should have been like two stubborn sort of tough guys going at it and sort of fighting for the prize. You know, they should have really been going at it because, that would have been a lot more cool to see.
Because what we ended up getting was this weird Windy World buddy cop film where two likable kind of scants are running away from... You know, it's like a buddy film. Like these guys become buddies and they're, you know, having adventures in all these alcoves and cults and all this with a little bit of like Christian religious underlays run through the whole thing, you know? Like And it was like, and then it was like a road movie, like like sort of a Mad Max road movie, but instead of cars, they were all flying around in airplanes up and down the Slipstream. Like,
yeah. It had a lot of promise. This movie had so much promise. Like you mentioned, Adam, a lot of money was spent on it. The soundtrack was fantastic. The premise was really good. I mean, you know, this is like the late 80s where, like you also mentioned before, Adam, like Waterworld was about to be released. Like it was in that vein. It could have been great, and it could have been
epic.
Yeah, directed so much better. And yeah, it had potential. That's all I'm going to say.
And I think, like, you know, to add to that, it had a pretty awesome cast. Like, it was like, you had the American ring-ins, but then there was a brilliant, solid British go-to supporting cast. But then, there was just like a series of missteps that one after another individually probably wouldn't have affected the film, but linking them all together just made it sort of like a bit head-scratching. In saying that, I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed the missteps because I'm like, we've seen some absolute stinkers, dude, and this is nowhere near as bad as any of those stinkers. Like,
no, you're right, mate.
The intriguing novelty value of watching, you know, Mark Hamill and Bill Paxton and, you know, Ben Kingsley and Robbie Coltrane, all in the one movie in like this film that really kind of did look like 1979 Mad Max. It like had that sort of very washed out like feel, you know. It had a lo-fi feel about it. It was all filmed in Ireland, but that's why it was all quite
Ireland. Okay.
Windy. And, you know, so look, mate, I think that, you know, like I said, it never got a theatre release in the US, so it never really had a chance to even bust through. I think it probably by and large just ended up in dollar bins on direct-to-DVD or VHS in the States.
Is it in your collection?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's on a double bill. Slipstream is on a double bill with like 2,889 AD, like another really shocking one. So
sounds good.
So there was another. Mark Hamill also did another one, which I think was like Time Runner, which is slightly better. But it's funny because there's this sort of real Blade Runner thing going on with Mark Hamill. Like I think
there is,
which I find really hilarious because who played Deckard in Blade Runner, which was Harrison Ford. You know, so I'm wondering if there was some competitive, like, you know, I guess aspirations in that. Is you know Harrison Ford's done that. But like I said, I'm just looking at my notes here. Oh, that thing about the dialogue. That's right. Like I made this note that it wasn't like. It felt like that they weren't actually talking to each other in the movie, but more like reciting lines to each other. They were dropping. Yeah. So, and it ranged between quasi-philosophical to just downright cheesy cliche. Like, there's one line where the Mark Hamill's sidekick, the police officers, I think she trackers like. Tracker. She says this thing to Bill Paxton's character, says, this is like a suicide mission to hell and back. It's like, you don't come back from a suicide mission.
Oh, no. The dialogue was horrible. That was one of the first notes that I made because it opened up. It looked pretty good. There was a brief description and the first scene really reminded me of the North by Northwest, where the plane swoops on, you know, the guy running in the suit. Did you get North by Northwest vibes from that?
Yeah.
It's a bit It started off a little Hitchcockian, and then as soon as someone started talking, I just wrote down dialogue horrible.
Yeah, it just goes. Looks beautiful. They've got the countryside. They've got the butler running, swooping down by an ultralight aircraft. It's all looking. It's all looking right, and then the first dude opens his fucking mouth, and you go, "Bum, bow."
and you're dead right with the narration, like where they were sort of pontificating, sort of like looking off into the distance, you know, talking whimsically. It's kind of like that's what they would that's the kind of script writing they were doing in that era when they were doing like medieval pieces like Night or fantasy pieces like that. It had that kind of element of fantasy movie making and narration, but it wasn't the movie for that. It was like a dystopian action adventure film, but it was seemed to be made or written by people who had that almost like late 80s British fantasy way of writing.
And it was funny because they really did. It was almost like there was the pontification off where you had the Byron character and the Ben Kingsley character in a cave, and they were just dropping lines, and each line was just more like Dickie than the other. It was like a swallow when he flies at night with 2:30 in the morning. Well, when we're gone, we'll only be dust in the sand. When I decompose, I will be just gold. It's like, what are you saying?
What?
It's like
come on.
Just, and then they strap the android to a kite in a crucifix pose. It's like, what? It was great. So we're wrapping up quickly, but this is the bit where you love the most.
Body count.
It was 12. So Mark Hamill killed 12 people. So the kills per minute in this one, while I scroll down in my magical kills per minute computerator. So 12 kills by Mark Hamill, runtime 102 minutes. On the version that I watched, and mind you, listeners, there's everything from 102 to 130 to 2.
That's correct.
So there's lots of versions. But in the version I watched, I'm giving it a 0.117 kills per minute or KPM. Funnily enough, not the most kills per minute that Mark Hamill has had. His most kills per minute are actually in Star Wars A New Hope, where it's 286, because he just destroys so many stormtroopers.
Yeah. Badass.
So badass. So, yeah, I think, that's it. Borgie, what do you reckon? I think it's a solid 3 out of 10.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's hilarious. Thank you, Baron Von Borg, for putting us through this movie. Thank you for
letting me off the hook, because normally I'm the one that puts Mark through these movies.
Yeah, it's your turn. It's your turn, Borgie. Bloody hell.
Listeners and Losteners, we could be found on all the platforms. Just type in Wastelands Radio Show. We're on the Facebook and the Instagram and the YouTube. Again, Wastelands Radio Show. You can email us at Gmail. That's wastelandsradioshow@gmail.com and wastelands.com.au for the web, where you can get the episode notes and the direct downloads. Also, the store, we have some sick merch. There's some pretty awesome stuff. And so get onto that. We've got some toxic toys as well that we're going to be flicking around in the next episode. Toxic toys, I hear you ask. Yes, very interesting. Marco, thank you for joining me again.
Thanks for having me.
It's been delightful.
Absolutely. We've dissected in our own way yet another shonky movie, this time a Lostener request.
So, Losteners, if you have any other requests or you want to put us through any more torturous devices, the most shocking or the best or whatever, flick us a message through the different platforms and we'll give it a crack. But right now, my good man, is there anything more you would like to add?
Well, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
B-grade, punk rock, street trash, Wastelands.
It's over!